A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning and welcome. It's a Tuesday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yes, sometimes we need reminding. Good morning from Abuja in the Federal Capital Territory. I can have this one up on Kayode. He's not here today. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, yeah, so, well, we've got quite a number of matters to highlight and, take a look at here today. And some of them you get to see as we progress. But this time, we'll have to go right on to the dailies and see what they reflect and how they reflect in some of those matters. So that's what we'll do in a moment. All right, let's start off with, well, first of all, we've got a guest here with us to take us through some of the dailies here this morning. If you just take a look, we've got Dr. Bizidechi Folusile, who is the former editor of Punch newspaper and now publishes Frank Talk Now. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Let's start off with New Telegraph and Buhari swears in Ariwola as acting CJN as Tanko resigns, cites ill health. Let me just read the riders as well. Clean all mess in Judiciary. NBA tells Ariwola ex-CJN's resignation soft landing. Described to a source. 2023, don't make Nigerians lose confidence in Judiciary. President warns Supreme Court judges, Lord Tanko, for strengthening democracy, confers GCON on him. LPPC shortlists 129 lawyers for elevation to SAN. So all of this happening in the judiciary. That was the big news yesterday as well.
Very big indeed. I remember yesterday morning when the news broke that the former CJN resigned. A lot of people didn't believe it. And they were like, no, are you sure this is true? And coming a few days after just about 14 justices, complained about issues of welfare and all of that. So people don't really know why the former CJN resigned.
They don't think it's just ill health?
Well, you just wonder how come the coincidence seems to be high. How come he didn't resign probably 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? Hence all the riders, and the fact that NBA is saying you're just clean the mess, because there is a mess. Really, if you notice what happened during the CJN Tanko's tenure, has never happened in Nigeria, for justices to come up like a trade union, so to say, to write to the point of writing a petition.
Even though they say it was leaked. It
was leaked, yes, to the point of being leaked, to the media. So for me, it's big news, and the fact that a new acting CJN was sworn in almost immediately made it look as if,
That means they already, I think maybe in some quarters it was expected.
Oh, yeah, something like that. So to Nigerians, it will come as a shock.
Yeah. But then look at this at the bottom strip. Tension as Ansaru terrorists ban political activities in parts of Kaduna, abduct office-bound DPO. Zamfara governor can't order CP to issue license. CBS says only president instruct military. That goes. But this part where Ansaro terrorists banning political activities in parts of Kaduna, is this how this thing starts?
I think Kaduna is far becoming something else. If you notice that a lot of killings have been going on in Kaduna of recent, and I think for the terror group that is talking about ban on political activities, it's just like taking it to Kaduna State. It's been on. You know, they've been saying a lot of things about government meeting their demands and all of that. So for Kaduna now, for them to pin down Kaduna and to say there is not going to be any political activity, it goes a long way to show that Kaduna is far becoming an insecure state. And the abduction of a DPO.
Who was going to the office?
I don't know.
But quite a number of people had been saying, you know, even though in hush-hush tones, that there's a group of people who don't want elections to hold, general elections to hold. And then this headline comes. So could they be testing the waters for some reason?
It's possible. You know, I told you that it's just like taking it to Kaduna. It's just a mini show, so to say, because these people have been making different kinds of demands on government and all of that. So it is not impossible that they could be testing waters and to know if, you know, they can actually prevent they can actually wreak a more general havoc, even though they've been doing so. They've been doing a lot on Nigeria. Remember that the passengers of the train that was abducted that were abducted in Abuja, they are still in detention. They've not been released. So you can see that they are really testing the might of government. And for Kaduna State, I think they are mounting pressure on the Kaduna State government, probably because of the governor's stand on ransom and all of that, you know. So they are really trying to let him know that, look, we are very powerful. I don't envy the governor, though, because he's been under a lot of pressure. More so when he's not even a governor in the northeastern part of the country, where we know that we have these bandits and all these terrorists operating. Kaduna is in the northwest, and relatively, that should be a safer place.
You have a lot of military formations in Kaduna where you think this kind of things can never happen.
Can never happen, but unfortunately, this is what you see.
And then there's one more. Organ donor claim. Ekweremadu wife dragged NIMC others to court. The court fixes July 1 for hearing. So it keeps happening thick and fast, this story. Who knows?
Well, look at the Guardian newspaper. Seems looks like maybe all the papers are going to compare notes this morning.
Yeah.
Amid rift, Mohammed bows out. Ariwola becomes CJN. That's the lead of the Guardian newspaper. Look at the writers. Buhari swears in Ariwola as acting CJN, confers GCON on Mohammed, warns Judiciary against losing confidence of Nigerians. I will not fail Nigerians, Ariwola assures. Access to justice hails CJN's resignation. NBA links CJN's resignation to rumbling in Supreme Court and several others you'll find right there. Well, that's that story. That's a rider on the front page of the New Telegraph. It's a major one on the front page of the Guardian newspaper, right under the nameplate. You don't have such powers. Irabo falls Matawale on arms bearing. That story is on page 6. Well, that story is not likely to die down anytime soon.
I don't think so. I don't think so. More so when we know that there is no, right now in Nigeria, there is no constitutional provision that empowers citizens to carry arms. But out of frustration, out of whatever, the governor came out to say, well, you people, you just have to defend yourself and just carry arms and attack attack those who are planning to attack you. I mean, and you know, you don't give power by words of mouth. You can't say because you are the governor, therefore you can just order your people to carry arms when it is not legalized. So you're about telling the governor that you don't have such powers. And truly, he doesn't have such powers. If the governors want citizens to carry arms, they know what to do. They should go through the legislation. They should lobby the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, first of all, so that we can know that it will be in Nigeria's constitution that Nigerians have the power to carry arms and ammunition to defend themselves and all of that. But for me, I think all of this telling people to carry arms is like trying to put your responsibility on people, because the job of securing lives and properties lies in the government, and you cannot just say because you are overwhelmed, then you now transfer that responsibility to the populace, asking them to go carry arms and ammunition. A lot of things have to do with even defending yourself. Have they been trained? Do they know how to use guns and all of that? So it goes beyond just being overwhelmed. I think the governors should just do what is needed.
Well, there are those who have also drawn parallels with, hey, it's election year, and then you're asking, I mean, anyway.
Exactly.
As the Guardian newspaper this morning, Malpoy.
Well, let's look at Daily Trust for you. They also have that lead story, how Tanko Mohammed was forced to resign as CJ, and that's what they have on the front page for you as a lead story. So while you find all of the fact that the former CJN has bowed out and there's a new CJN on the seat, Daily Trust is giving you the how. You know, what went on behind the scenes. Intrigues that led to ouster. Ariola takes over in acting capacity. I'll not fail Nigeria, new CJN. Will help clean the Origin stable. That's from the NBA. So page 4 will give you all of the details. They also have stories that you might have seen before. Ansari terrorists ban political activities in Kaduna, beat residents. Military rejects Zamfara's call for citizens to bear arms. It's on page 2. But look at this very disturbing one. Lassa fever kills 158 in 24 states in 6 months. So over a period of 6 months, we've lost 158 people in 24 states as a result of Lassa fever. And we're in the middle of the rainy season, and it's not usually when we will get Lassa fever cases. Are we paying any attention to what is happening in the health sector and what the NCDC is reporting to us?
I don't think we are paying enough attention. If you look at that case of Lassa fever, for instance, it's been on and on. It's not just something that is happening now. Then you ask us, what have we really done to prevent this from happening again and again? We can't really say anything. So a whole 130-something people dying within 6 months. You just realize that a lot of things are killing Nigerians. They are either dying of insecurity or health challenges and all of that. And this is just Lassa fever. When you pick another disease, for example, you will find out that the number is also high and high. I think, generally speaking, we focus so much attention on issues of insecurity in this country, and it will appear as if we are leaving some other important sectors not well attended to. You hear a lot of talks on so amounts being voted into buying warships, equipment to fight this, to fight that, but you don't get to hear much about how much is being voted into the health sector from time to time to actually solve the problem of health challenges in this country. So it's really a terrible thing. It's terrible.
Indeed. I'm just, I mean, what you've said is really apt. The fact that we're not paying a lot of attention to health challenges and how there's been a lot of focus on security. But another story, and maybe other stories that have been occupying our time, is politics. Look at it. They have a strip at the bottom here. What I discussed with Obasanjo on 2023 elections. That's from Ango Abdullahi. That story is on page 12 of the paper. Ango Abdullahi has been speaking, but we also heard recently former President Obasanjo speaking again, and the PDP reacting, saying, former President, please keep quiet about our presidential candidate, or otherwise. Will this feud, this perceived feud between the former president and his former vice president, who's now the presidential candidate of the PDP, do you think it will ever end?
Honestly, I don't even understand the feud, because in 2015, it was the same former president Obasanjo that endorsed again his VP then, saying that some of the things he spoke about him, this and this, and now he's saying something else again. So I don't think it will ever end. I think it has to do with the interest of these gladiators at every point in time. So they bring out whatever weapon they can use to further their interest at any point in time. If the former president feels that, well, this time around I need to support my VP, he says some positive things about him. And when he thinks that probably he has another interest that he wants to protect, he probably goes around to say other things. I want to say that there has been a lot of inconsistency in the comments that the former president has been passing on his VP. And this time around that he said that, that the PDP is giving him 48 hours to withdraw his statements on their presidential candidates. That one will make you laugh, because I don't even know the power that PDP has over former President Obasanjo that will make him or force him to recount a statement. And mind you, this is not just a statement. Some of these things are even written in a book. So how do you recount what is already written? So I guess all of them are just, they are entertaining us in this political era, and let's just keep ourselves entertained. Though some of the entertainments might not really be funny. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take a look at leadership next. Also, the big story for them is the CJN matter. And so you could see right there, Ariola is new CJN as Tanko quits 18 months to retirement. And then that bit about PDP to Obasanjo, leave our presidential candidate alone or else. So they will expose him. I'm sure many people will say, look, please, forget about this or else. Just do it. Let's see what you want to do. I wonder, because him and the PDP candidate, they were together. So what could they link to him that will not be linked to the VP? So it remains to be seen, I guess. So you never can tell what these politicians have. So I guess we'll watch that space. But fresh voter registration hits 10.4 million.
That's great.
10.4 million. So this is a lot of numbers.
Yeah, that's
one
great.
wonders how many of these people will get their PVCs.
Well, that's another thing. That's a challenge for INEC. But it's so encouraging that Nigerians are taking this next election very, very seriously.
Largely young people.
Especially the young people. I can tell you that my son left home as early as 6 a.m. last week to ensure that he registered. He went the first day, he couldn't do it. He couldn't complete it because he started online. But he went the following day, in spite of the traffic and all of that, you know, because they were just serious about it. And mind you see, they are just voting for the first time. They are just entering that level. So they are very excited. And some of them that are tired about what is happening and they think their votes will count, they think they should register. But then the INEC is the one that we have to now call upon now, because it's one thing to register. It's another thing for you to even get your voter's card.
So now what they have is just that slip.
It's just
now
that
the
slip.
PVC is the main one.
Main
INEC
thing,
has to
and
give them.
yes, they have to give it to them. So
now, INEC has a lot of time.
Yeah, and I even want to believe that the INEC will do the right thing, because at least we've seen some forms of improvements in INEC's activities, even going by what happened in Ekiti. So let's just give it to them that the body will ensure that these PVCs are ready, because they are also campaigning for people to register and all of that. We want to believe, but they just have to be on their toes, because we don't want to hear situations where very close to election, people will be talking about PVCs not being ready. And then afterwards, they will now tell us that there are thousands of PVCs, you know, that are uncollected.
But even now, there are thousands of PVCs that are uncollected.
Yes, I know. They are even saying that is it not Osun election that is about to hold? They are telling us that there are thousands that are not collected. So
they need to liberalize the collection points. Make it easy for people to pick up their PVCs wherever they are. And then let's see the data of uncollected PVCs across the spread of the country. Where do they have those PVCs not collected? Then why aren't they collecting it? Why do they collect more in some parts of the country and less in other parts?
Exactly.
So those are the things we should look at. So display the data, let's see them so we can interrogate those data. I think it will help a lot of people moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps another issue to discuss would be the percentage of voters over the years. That's not a matter for now.
Okay.
Nigerian News Direct has this one on its front page. Corruption allegation. Mixed reactions trail CJN's resignation as Buhari swears in Ariwola. That's what you have as lead of the paper. A lot has been said about that. Article commends erstwhile CJN's courage. Restore Nigeria's judiciary public confidence. But other lawyers will urge Ariwola. That story is on page 2. Well, it seems to be the transfer window. It's still open. Oyetola welcomes over 10,000 PDP members into APC. Wow. The transfer window, right?
Yeah, and one interesting headline I saw yesterday was Aregbesola slapped Oyetola. I said, Nigerians have started again. Which one is Aregbesola slapping Oyetola? But apparently, they are now together. You know, maybe just they hug themselves and he just gave him a
slap on the back or something.
You know, so the transfer window is still open, like you said. And, you know, Nigerians sometimes, they just watch and find out where their bread will be buttered. They just do the analysis. If they look at it that, oh, it's like this APC is likely to win this time around, others will just rush in. And if they think that, oh, I think they are looking at Osun State for now, especially with the outcome of the presidential primary of the APC, they are, you know, people are already making their calculations. Everything is towards 2023. How do we become relevant and all of that? And we also need to talk about issues of ideology in our political system in this country.
Maybe that will be a matter for a completely different symposium, because that's definitely an endless one.
Oh, yeah.
You know. Look at this one also on the bottom of the page. Scarcity. FG to sanction airing fuel stations maintains 165 naira pump price. Are you comforted?
No, I am not. How can I be comforted? the FG that cannot stop fuel scarcity, the FG that cannot make fuel, the products available.
Yeah, they're the sole importers by way of NNPC.
Exactly. And you now tell a marketer who went about getting it anyhow to make sure that is in business. You are now saying that you should sell at 165 naira. You see, all these commandments and all of these orders and directives, they are not necessary. Just do the right thing. If well is available, you won't see it. If you put your own at 180 naira, you won't get customer now. So if it is available, there is no need for anybody to say it must be 165.
Okay. I guess we'll see. Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at Vanguard for you, and they also have the story of the quitting CJN. Citing ill health, CJN quits after row with Supreme Court justices. Cite ill health, Justice Ariwola takes oath of office as acting CJN. Buhari confers GCON award on outgone CJN Mohammed. Allegations against ex-CJN will be probed. That's from Okocha SAN. MBA asks acting CJN to address ills plaguing judiciary. New CJN must declare state of emergency in judiciary. That's from a group called Access to Justice. Atiku commends Justice Mohammed's resignation, welcomes Ariwola. So you find all of the details on page 5 of the paper. Look at the story which we spoke about earlier. PDP gives OBJ 48 hours to clarify remarks on Atiku. And perhaps you've seen this. Organ donor claim, Ikweremadu wife, Sue Nimsi, NIS, others. Page 27 will give you the details. If you look on the corner here, Catholic communicators raise alarm over incessant killing of priests. Yes, at least 2 of them are reported killed in 2 different parts of the country. One in Kaduna over the weekend, and another one in Edo State. He was kidnapped and he was later murdered by his abductors. So you find details on page 12 of the paper. Look at this one. Ahmed Gulak, Imo police arrest suspected killers 1 year after. So it looks like all hope is not lost in terms of getting justice for those who might have lost their lives under very questionable circumstances, if the police are able to get 1 year after those who murdered Mr. Gulak.
Well, we also need to go beyond getting the suspected murderers into actually prosecuting them and getting them to pay for their sin. So we need to commend the police, for what they have done so far, and to also remind them of many other killings. The husband of the Akunyuli, the Professor Akunyuli's death, we still have it fresh, and so many other murders, particularly in that eastern part of the country. We need to also bring the perpetrators to book. So arresting, fine, but then when you also look at the time it took, 1 year, and you look at all the murder cases that are still unresolved, you just wonder how long it's likely to take to actually get the perpetrators to book and all of that. But we commend the police efforts, and we just wish them the best.
Well, on that note, we'll end it this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Bisi Deji Folutele is the former editor of Punch and publisher Frank Talk Now. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
Justices of the Supreme Court converge on the council chamber for the swearing-in of a new acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Chief Justice Olukayode Ariwola. A few hours after Justice Tanko Muhammad resigned his position as the Chief Justice of Nigeria on health grounds, President Muhammadu Buhari swears in another 3 years after.
I, Ariwola Olukayode, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, protect and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so help me God.
The new CJN takes the judicial oath in an acting capacity. During the short ceremony, the president thanks Justice Tanko Muhammad for his immense contributions to the development of the judiciary and confers on him the second highest honor.
I hereby bestow on him the national honor of the Great Commander of the Order of the Niger, GCON. We shall uphold the constitutional provisions on the rule of law and the principle of separation of powers.
The president also urged the judiciary to live up to expectations.
I hereby invite Honorable Olukayode Ariwola, JSC, being the next most senior justice of the Supreme Court in acting capacity pursuant to Section 231, subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended. I want to admonish the justices of the Supreme Court to always remain faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Our nation is approaching a critical general election in 2023. The judiciary must not do anything to fail the ordinary people of Nigeria, which may make them lose confidence in the judiciary.
Justice Ariwola, who was born on August 22, 1954, hails from Oyo State. He earned his law degree from the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, in 1980, and a year after he was called to the Nigerian bar. He kicked off his career as a legal officer in the Oyo State Ministry of Justice and stayed in the role until he moved into private practice in 1988. He was appointed a judge of the Superior Court of Record in Oyo State in 1992, and in 2005, he was appointed a justice of the Court of Appeal. He became a justice of the Supreme Court in 2011. The 68-year-old acting CJN comes on board days after 14 justices of the Supreme Court criticized the former CJN of mismanaging their welfare, among other things, raising the critical question of whether or not controversy brews within the sector.
There is no controversy in the Supreme Court. We are one with the Chief Justice. That's why you heard the President said his Lordship is disengaging on the grounds of ill health.
Justice Ariwola takes over in acting capacity for the next 3 months, pending his confirmation as a substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To give us their perspectives on that subject matter, we've got two gentlemen, as you may have seen right there. Ahmed Raji is a senior advocate of Nigeria. He joins us from Port Harcourt virtually. And we also do have Abdul Fatai Sambo, who is an associate professor, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning.
Mr. Raji,
good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let me start with you, Mr. Raji. Of course, you must have also heard and probably read as to the backstory concerning how this happened, why it may have happened, all those reasons notwithstanding. So for you, I mean, even though some of those thought there might have been a lot more to this, how does this come across to you? Is there more to this that meets the eye for you?
Well, it might take time to to know what really happened, but based on what Mr. President read to the Nigerian public, that the former CJN resigned on health ground. I do not think we should doubt Mr. President, and coupled with the fact that in the same speech, he conferred on him the highest honor that can be given to anybody who has held such kind of an office, that is the GZON. Well, maybe bookmakers or history makers can research further in future and see, but as of today, we just have to believe what Mr. President has said. That is the way I would look at it. But that the former CGN resigned on health ground. Okay, so correct this if it's wrong. It sounds as though you say, well, let's just believe it, but to you, there should be a lot more questions than what is out there at the moment. I don't want to go that route. I think the best thing is to move forward, especially when the acting CJN has said they are all one, they are all united, and they better look into the future and see how best judiciary can be enhanced, the performances, and then, because there are a lot of challenges. And the best thing is to, I think, sit down, look at the challenges, and fashion out the best solutions to most of the challenges. These challenges, some are not about any particular human being, but rather because of the system. I would rather go that route rather than trying to apportion blame here and there. That is my own take.
Just before we go into those issues you're trying to raise, Mr. Raji, is this something you saw coming?
Well, in life, anything can happen as human beings. If death can happen to anybody at any time, what is resignation? We must be prepared for any event. Not specifically, but it is not surprising that somebody has resigned on ground of health. It's not, to me, a surprise.
Professor Sambo. Okay. Prof. Sambo, it appears as though some part of what Mr. Raji is saying comes across as though he's saying, let sleeping dogs lie, so that you can look into the future. But from what you've seen now, is it all straightforward?
Well, thank you very much for having me. But then I would like to say that anybody can resign at any time. But if you look at the provision of the Constitution as regards the resignation or the removal or the appointment of Chief Justice of Nigeria, you see that the Constitution does not really envisage a situation where somebody would give his job on health ground. The simple reason is that if you look at Section 231, particularly subsection 4 of the Constitution, when you read together with subsection 5 of the Constitution, you would discover that this is one of the areas in which the CJN decided to resign, decided to leave office. But then the issue is, if the CJN resigns purely on health ground, if you look clearly, a calm reading of Section 231, subsection 4, will show that there are two circumstances under which a person may actually vacate his office. Almost three circumstances. For instance, now, the office may be vacant. The office of the CJN may be vacant on health ground. On resignation. It may be vacant on the fact that death. It may be vacant by virtue of removal under Section 192 of the 292 of the Constitution. But the thing is, Subsection 4 of Section 231 is saying that, yes, if the office of the CJN is vacant, or if the person holding that particular office is unable to perform the function of the office. These are two different situations.
Okay. Prof, just give us a moment. We're going to go back to you for a lot longer. But, Mr. Raji, when you say that we need to look forward, what will that mean?
What I mean, for example, the court is over congested. What are we doing about that? Today, in the Court of Appeal, Lagos Division alone, they have over 10,000 cases in their docket. And in a year, they can only run about 600 or 500 cases. So, and every year, we have 1,000 cases being filed, over 1,000 cases for appeals. How do they cope with it? Which means in another 5 years, we'll have a backlog of over 20,000 cases. This is what we have to do, forensic analysis, and find out, develop schemes by which we can decongest the courts. Otherwise, in the nearest future, the court system may fail. This is what I believe we should focus our attention on. It's beyond individual justices. This is what I'm looking at. Not just, his lordship has put in, it's his right to resign, and he has resigned. I think we should let the sleeping dog lie and wish him well. But to start, yes?
What do people do? Are we supposed to just forget about all those cases or issues that were raised in the letter that the justices raised, questioning administration or maladministration in the judiciary at this level?
Well, that should not be the main focus now. This is the point I'm making. All those may be looked into maybe later, but that should not be the primary focus. Otherwise, the current people who are there, they will lose focus. They should concentrate. The court is over congested. When you file an appeal in the Supreme Court with the best of whatever, you may not get it heard until after 7 years.
But Mr.
So
Raji,
these are the issues.
well,
yes.
Perhaps those issues raised in that letter, leaked as it may have been alleged, could actually be an agenda for the new CJN. Otherwise, these issues that you have raised about congested courts and all of that, you know, they are things that have been discussed over and over again, even until this moment, and nothing has been done. So, by way of setting agenda for the new CJN, what are some of those issues that you think need to be addressed as quickly as possible in order to lay a foundation for the issues you think are primary?
Congestion of the courts.
Yes.
This is very, 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 very important, congestion. And then a situation where any kind of appeal can end up in that highest court should be looked into. That should be looked into. Because all over the world, or well, let me say, in most advanced democracies, not all appeal terminates in the highest court of the land. In England, the Supreme Court, formerly House of Lords, will not take more than 20 appeals in a year. In an election year here, the Supreme Court at times will attend to about 600 cases in a year. How? How? Then you have a land matter traveling from Shinkafi village up onto Guzau, going to Kaduna and traveling to Abuja. Why? Or from Okrika, traveling to Port Harcourt, from Port Harcourt, then to Abuja. Why? Why should such matters end up in the Supreme Court of Nigeria? I know this is beyond their lordships. It is the fault of the Constitution. This must be looked into. This, I believe, is the immediate and urgent agenda that should be pursued by their lordships, by way of proposal to the National Assembly to limit the jurisdiction of the court, and any appeal to go to them must be by leave. and not a situation where every Tom, Dick, and Harry will just be throwing an appeal and then the whole place is congested, over-congested, and they are overworked. And then, apart from this, their remuneration is totally out of it. It is very, very bad. One of the senior lawyers, Mr. On, just filed a suit now, pressing for a review of their salaries and emoluments. A situation where the entire Supreme Court justices, what they earn is not what up to an MD of a bank earns. That is the private sector. Or a situation where a director in the federal government parastatal earns more than all the 10 justices combined. What kind of a system is that? What kind of a system is that? And they are now complaining of this. These are all the major structural problems that should be looked into. They are not being well paid at all. At all. I repeat, they are not being well paid.
All right, Mr. Raji, we understand you have to run, but Makwe just got one question for you before you go. Makwe?
Well, been tied nicely with that one. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Raji. Let me quickly read something to you. And I know that, as Chimlin did say, you're trying to let sleeping dogs lie. However, some people will say that if you do not try to correct what has been noticed before, institutionally, that the problems could very well rear their heads again. The words of the 14 Supreme Court justices in that leaked letter is very hard to ignore. And I'm going to read it again just to press it home. It says, Your Lordship, with all due respect, this is the peak of the degeneration of the court. It says the height of decadence and clear evidence of the absence of probity and moral rectitude. This act alone portends imminent danger to the survival of this court and the judiciary as an institution, which is gradually drifting to extinction. When Supreme Court justices use words, they don't use it lightly. They use, they write what they mean, and those words, each one of them carry a lot of weight. When they say that the court, the judiciary as an arm, is going into extinction, doesn't it say a lot about the amount of work that needs to be done by the new CJN who is now on the seat? Where would you suggest he starts from, especially in the area of confidence?
Well, that is very good. That what they have written should be a lesson to all the justices. Should be something when you wake up every morning, you look at it. Oh, these are our complaints. Let me avoid it. Oh, these are our complaints. Let me not move near them. I think beyond that, I do not see what they are going to gain by saying, oh, we are going to probe Mr. A or we are going to probe Mr. B. That is the point I'm making. They should use it as something to learn from. So maybe not a probe.
Maybe not a probe, sir. What about institutional check? Because people have talked about how this, it's unheard of for Supreme Court justices to write. Some people have likened this to a mutiny. And it was seen that there was no other way out for them to have checked what they felt was happening within the system. Do you think that there is, beyond a probe, in terms of looking at the future, is there anything you think can be done within the judiciary itself to avoid this sort of letter being written again?
I think, well, maybe it's from structural checks and balances in the system. Some structural checks and balances, but looking forward, not looking backwards. From structural checks and balances in the system. Perhaps in the amendment to the Constitution, a whole lot of responsibilities of the CJN may be reduced.
Mr. Amaraji, we do appreciate your time this morning. We would have loved to go a little further because it appears as though there are some interesting areas that you're going right there, but unfortunately we have to let you go and catch your flight.
No, you can continue, no problem.
Okay.
I can go beyond it.
All right, in that case then, just what Mark did ask you, follow up on that one. So if you say looking forward without looking backwards, how do you look forward without knowing where you're coming from? Because it's from where you're coming from you want to correct so that you get to where you intended to go.
Yeah, that is, you use it as a template. You look at it. What were the errors you were talking about? And then how do we guide against it? That is my point. How do we guide against the errors? Some of them may be individual errors or collective errors or systemic. errors or structural errors or whatever it is. But look at it, what the complaints are, learn from them, and then move forward. That is all I'm saying. I'm not saying they should ignore whatever the observations. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the observations should be ignored. All I'm saying is that they should just learn from the observations or the perceived errors or wrongs or what have you, and move forward. Because
my apologies for butting in. My apologies for butting in. Talking about moving forward, it's a long time coming. Something that you said earlier, also kind of referenced in that letter that Malkwe quoted from, is that there is a risk of the judiciary going into extinction. You said it earlier in one of your responses to us here this morning. So one is wondering, how did we get here in the first place? Because back in time, well, Chamberlain did talk about us looking back as a way of looking forward. Back in time, the judiciary always had respect. Even during military era, they always had that regard. They always had such institutional, strength and framework that kept it on. At what point would you say we lost it? Talking about it as an institution without looking at the individuals involved. At what point would you say we lost that importance, that pedigree that the judiciary had, whether it was military rule or civil rule?
Well, it's not about the point. It's about what are the factors responsible. For example, I've identified congestion in the courts. I've identified poor funding. And perhaps one of the observations should also be the manner of appointment. So it is not about the point. But, well, if you want me to locate it, perhaps it was when the military came in. Because in the First Republic, we had a judiciary that was functioning very well. Based on what I read, I was not a participant. And then it was growing very well. And suddenly we had like in the Western states, we had Western Court of Appeal, Western State Court of Appeal, and things were, moving very well. But when the military came, all this over-centralization and what have you has brought about a lot of problems. So we may locate it. That may be one of the points. For example, I've identified why, or I've argued that cases, not all cases should travel up to Supreme Court. Each region or each geopolitical zone should be the final arbiter in respect of some matters. If you carry a land matter from Ofiki in Oyo State, it goes from customary court to the magistrate court to the high court in Oyo or Shaki, then to the Court of Appeal. What is that case coming to do in Abuja? What is it coming to do? Or you have a chieftaincy matter from Ikere Ekiti and traveling from Ikere up until Ado, there's a Court of Appeal now in Ado, then traveling to Abuja. What's it coming to do there? Or one from Onitsha, traveling from Onitsha up until Oka, then Oka. What's it coming to do there in Abuja? What I'm trying to say is, perhaps the structure should be looked into, whereby the regions can now have some kind of Supreme Court or final court, so to speak, on some matters, and that those that will come to this Federal Supreme Court will be areas of common concern, like foreign relations, currency, and what have you, and not just all these kind of matters, chieftaincy, land, marriage, and all those kind of things. That is maybe. Then funding. Funding is very, very crucial. A Supreme Court judge in England or justice in England, is remuneration or allowances far, 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 far above what judicial officers earn in Nigeria. Well, we are not the same as UK, but we should not fall that too low. A situation where what is Supreme Court justice earn in a month is not up to $1,000 today. Cause for concern. Then, if you read their letter, they were complaining about lack of internet access. Then diesel to in their homes, then generators. Some of them, they've not been accommodated. They still, no official quarters. What? So then there's a problem of funding. So that should be looked into. So these are some of the issues. But what I'm not saying you should ignore what they have written, but you should use it as a template to move forward. That is my take.
Or the associate professor of public law, for instance, and the public is quite interested in some of these things as they're playing themselves out. So for you, given all the scenario about the resignation of the CJN, new person being sworn in, and then he's being given GCO, and so would you also think, or do you share the same perspective as Mr. Raji saying, look, yes, much as we need to use that as a template to move forward, what do we then do? What would you have us put in place to ensure this kind of scenarios doesn't play itself out again?
Thank you very much. I think we have to really, I share the perspective of the leaders to a certain extent. But I also believe that if you look at, I wouldn't believe the resignation was clearly based on health ground. Yes, the president has said based on health ground. And the CJA, the former CJA also said yes, it was based on health ground. But clearly, if you look at the provision, as I was saying at that time, if you look at the provision of section 231, particularly subsection 4, you will know that a calm reading of that section allows even somebody who's actually suffering from infirmity of body or mind to step aside. Later, somebody will be, when he steps aside, somebody may be appointed. The most senior person, justice in that court may be appointed to fill that particular vacancy. Then he can come back later. If it's purely on that ground, he can come back later to say, yes, I'm now fit to resume my duty. That is the purpose of the provision of section 231, particularly subsection 4, because that particular subsection says, until the person holding that office now resumes. That's the whole leg of that particular section. Is saying that, okay, somebody may have health issue, and after having this health issue, and he gets well again, he can come back and resume his duty. So that is the purpose of that section. So perhaps,
if you could just shed a little more light on that, I'm sorry if I lost you there. Are you saying that if he has signed his resignation letter, then another has been sworn in an acting capacity, that the one who's resigned can come back to that position if he says, I'm fit to resume my functions?
No, he wouldn't resign. He wouldn't resign. What he can do is to step aside. He may just write to Mr. President that, yes, I'm not feeling fine at this particular moment. I cannot perform the function of my office. Kindly appoint somebody to fill this particular vacancy until I'll be ready to perform the function of my office. That is the reason why we have even in section 145 of the Constitution, where the president will be allowed to transmit letters to, a letter to the National Assembly saying, I will be going on medical vacation. Then, as soon as I'm back on that vacation, I will come and resume my office. If you look at, critically that particular subsection, it also gives a kind of leeway to the CJN to say, yes, I'm not feeling fine at this particular point in time. Then the president should appoint the most senior person to fill that particular vacancy. Then, if it's now okay, they can come back and resume. That's why I'm saying they can resume his office. That is the action.
Well, just give us a moment, gentlemen. We need to go to a quick break, but we will be back in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are with Ahmed Raji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and Abdul Fattah Sambo, who is an Associate Professor of Public Law Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, University of Ilorin, I beg your pardon. Well, Prof, you did give us a scenario in terms of how he can perhaps step aside and come back to the office. But as it is now, can we categorically say, even from the point of law, that the horse has bolted from the stable?
That the what?
The horse has bolted from the stable, so this resignation has come to stay. Isn't that what it is from the point of law? Now, all right, that being the case, when the president said he resigned on a health ground, and whatever matter came up is an internal affair of the judiciary, what specific steps do you expect to be taken in that particular context where he says, well, look, it's an internal affair of the judiciary? How should this be handled?
Well, I think it should be handled carefully. It's truly an internal affair of the judiciary. And I see members of the justices of the Supreme Court and generally members of the judiciary are supposed to be seen, not to be heard. Because normally if this thing is taken out of what is called something that is within the internal affair of the judiciary, there is a danger, a very serious danger to the constitutional democracy, because there is a chance that politicians will take advantage of this particular opening situation and infiltrate most of the judgments of the Supreme Court. You will recall what happened at the time when...
Perhaps I should rephrase, let me rephrase that. What specific steps do you want to see taken, be it a template, as Mr. Raji suggested, or a framework, whatever it is, a structure, to ensure that issues like this are seen to be addressed, and then other matters concerning administration, welfare, all of those issues, you have a platform to address all of them such that the judiciary can just say, we're well and truly on our way to judicial reforms?
Well, thank you very much. I agree with the position of Mr. Raji on those reforms. I want to add that there should be a station where the monies of the judiciary, at the moment they claim that the money of the judiciary is taken directly from consolidated revenue fund. But you only discover that in practice, it is only the salaries and allowances of some of these judges that are taken from consolidated revenue fund. Or there are stations where governors and presidents will still have to come into aid, or the CJ of the state, or CJ as the case may be, will have to go cap in hand to beg some of these governors to actually come to their aid in terms of some of these facilities that are needed for the court. I've seen a situation where some of these justices were actually conducting a very thorough research without electricity. There was a time I visited one of the justices in the course of one of my researches, and I found that I saw him in a very dark environment. I was saying, my Lord, you don't even have light. And my Lord was even sweating in that particular station. I mean, so that kind of environment is something that is that should be looked into. Money, there should be some level of financial independence for judges. And apart from these judges, the salaries and allowances of staff of the judiciary, apart from the judges, should also be charged on consolidated revenue fund. And that would, to a very large extent, allow them to perform their functions incredibly well. The another important thing is, anybody who has been appointed as a justice of the Supreme Court, or perhaps a judge of any court for that matter, he should try as much as possible to be above board, and should try as much as possible to carry everybody along. I think what really happened in this particular case was because of perhaps the gap in communication between my Lord Justice Danko and other 14 justices of the Supreme Court. Because one of the complaints was that there were no meetings. And if meetings are not held, perhaps due to the ill health of the CJN, then it becomes extremely difficult for you to say, yes, you want to actually address some of these things internally. Meetings have to be held, they have to actually communicate. Then, apart from this gap in communication, we have to ensure that there is a situation where the appeals not all appeals will have to go to the Supreme Court. Because sometimes you discover that matters relating to tenancy matters being held at the Supreme Court. And one important thing, one structural adjustment that I believe most strongly that has to be done is the issue of even creating the Constitutional Court. Because if you look at the situation of South Korea, for instance, they have their Constitutional Court, and within 1 year, we were able to discover that the Constitutional Court of South Korea were able to deliver at least 3,000 decisions of the court. And the decision of this Constitutional Court will be so much limited to matters relating to constitutional matters. And those who are actually experts in the field will be appointed as justices of the court. So that there will not be constant, if you see at the moment now, most political cases are actually, getting the attention of judges, and other cases are actually suffering. And the thing will not take, you could get, sometimes the Supreme Court is already giving cases for 2027, 2028 to hear those particular matters. So yes, I think
those court, you may likely rule the ruling of Dasuki today.
Can you hear me, please?
I do not know, sorry, I think we can hear Mr. Ahmed Raji. I do not know if he's on the phone call or whether he's also trying to say something in this conversation.
No.
Mr. Raji, I know that you've said... Okay, so I'm happy that you're part of the conversation. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, great. I'd just like to, for a number of Nigerians, and I know that, you've asked that we try to move forward. Chamberlain will keep asking how we can move forward without really looking back. For a number of Nigerians this morning, they're trying to understand, why it was important that the president award the rank or the award of GCON on the resigning Chief Justice of Nigeria. Do you think that that was absolutely necessary?
Well, that is the prerogative of Mr. President, and which he has exercised. But let me say one thing. You have to be very careful the way you handle some public officers. Otherwise, you will destroy the system. Except it is totally unavoidable. And I mean it. It is totally unavoidable. You do not embark on any exercise that will rubbish on public officials, because that will tell negatively on your system, and it will be a dangerous signal to the external world. I'm not saying...
And a number of... Sorry to interrupt your thoughts, sir. A number of people will understand why it will be that judicial officers, lawyers, senior advocates will be very, in a hurry to try and form a shield around the judiciary at this time. Because you've just talked about how we need to be very careful how we treat someone at that level in the judiciary, especially at a time like this, especially when you also look at the circumstances under which his predecessor left office, Justice Walter. There's still been questions on that. So, but this award, a letter was written, that letter is so difficult to ignore. The CJN himself wrote a response, an equally lengthy response, and talked about dancing naked in the marketplace, more or less referring to the dangers associated with the letter which the Supreme Court justices had written. However, it is so hard to ignore that, that was still hanging in the air. There was no neutral arbiter to look through it, and since these things were already in the public space, to try and, enlighten the public. While the public is still trying to deal with that, then we hear this letter of resignation from the CJN, and then he's resigning, and then the president gives him an award, GCON, saying that, he's also thanking him for his immense contributions to the judiciary, which are being unprecedented. Very big words from a president who uses words very sparingly too, and rarely gives awards. I mean, if you look at his own tenure of 7 years, you can count how many people he's actually given an award. So there have been questions as to, is this too much of an attempt to try and shield the judiciary? Is this really going to help us without taking without really trying to help the judiciary with the probity, which some people are saying it is in dire need of?
Well, opinions may differ, but I believe Mr. President or the regime has learned from the Onogan's experience and will not want such to repeat itself, because errors were made in that exercise, and I believe there's now a conscious attempt to avoid such slips in this case. That is the way I will put it, if you can decode what I'm saying. So I want to believe that such offices, for example, the other time, the Accountant General or whatever was arrested, and the next thing was, 90 billion and blah, 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 this or whatever. Yes, it's a good thing to bust such, but is it good to go public that way? Is it good for the system? It does happen in other crimes, but what they will do is they will call such top functionary, privately sit down and resolve it because of the negative impact it's going to have on the morale. If you come out, you say one single public officer took out 90 billion in your system, what is that telling the world about your system? What kind of a system will one individual be allowed to take out 90 billion? Is that a system? So in an attempt to redress some wrongs, you have to be careful the collateral damage, which may far outweigh whatever benefit you are going to get from what you are going to do. This is the point I'm making. I'm not saying sweep anything under the carpet, but develop schemes, ways to address it. Learn from how it is being handled in other world, in other climes.
Yeah, Mr. Raji, the question I'm asking, and some people will get the point you're making about, it seems that you're referring to a probe, and some people will say, okay, fine, he's resigned. For a number of people, that should let sleeping dogs lie. But should we perfume it? For some people, that will be what a GCON, awarding a GCON will be. Isn't this trying to, ignore that there is actually something in the room?
Yeah, you see, you have said there are allegations. And you said, in your own words, there has been no arbiter. So, and if he has resigned, and the tradition is to confer on them such award or honor, why will Mr. President not confer on Justice Ibrahim Tanko? Why? Why will he deny him? And besides, what I've said is that I'm not saying Justice Tanko is an angel. I'm not saying that. But you have to handle such public officials carefully so that you do not destroy what you are trying to build permanently. You do not destroy it permanently. We have to be very, very... And we should look at whatever the complaints are as a kind of charter of reference. For those who are there, they look at it, this, we commented about this, okay, let us guide against this and what have you. And then we look forward. But if there are serious issues later, such can be looked into silently and carefully, not all these papers and what have you.
All right, gentlemen, we need to go at those points. I mean, even the former CJN did say in that clip which we played that corruption will not be permitted in the judiciary. So even our laws also says no one is above the law. So one can then infer that conferment of a GCON does not preclude anyone from being tried if he or she is found wanting on the point of law.
That is correct.
That everybody's on the same page on that one.
That is correct. Are they not trying Abacha's family now?
Okay, so much about the language. Who can
be higher than the former head of state?
All right. Gentlemen, we have to thank you for coming on. Mr. Ahmed Raji, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, as well as Abdul Fattah Sambo, Professor of Law, Faculty, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Ilorin. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
We will be back in a moment, and then we'll still have some points of law. Fortunately, we couldn't ask the gentlemen what their position is on guns for citizens. I guess we'll do that some other time. But that is our next focus in the moment. Stay with us. Do you have a gun? Would you like to have a gun? Why should you have a gun? Well, these are some of the questions maybe those in Zamfara, well, even in Nigeria, may be asking themselves now. But it could also form part of what our guest may respond to in just a moment. So, again, we've got two gentlemen joining us this morning. Austin Ewa is a former AIG of police. He joins us virtually. We also do have Sani Shinkafi, who is the chairman committee on prosecution of bandits and other bandit-related offences, Zamfara State. It sounds like another related offences commission that we know. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. We'll just adjust a little bit on Mr. Shinkafi. But Mr. Iwa, you heard that directive.
Good morning.
Good morning. That directive from Zamfara State where they say residents can apply to the relevant agencies with a view to getting license to own a gun for protection. And they say it's supposed to aid security agencies given the challenge they are facing there. Well, you have been on the force. They're supposed to apply to the police. What is your impression about that specific directive?
Chamberlain, thank you for having me this morning. Let me start by saying that it is the duty of government everywhere to provide, to secure its citizens, to protect life and property of citizens. It is a very paramount responsibility for the existence of the state. Of course, we all talk about social contract, and it seems to me that the social contract between the state and its citizens have been broken in that particular state, in Zamfara State. Government has shown that it has lost control of what is happening here, and it has failed to abide by the social contract that it has with its people. It's very unfortunate that we are getting this kind of information. What I think the government is trying to do is to perpetuate the already existing anarchy in the state by asking citizens to carry guns. First of all, let us know that ownership of gun in Nigeria is purely for hunting and not for protection of human beings. And so I wonder where this is coming from, but I think that Zamfara government will reconsider its directive and look at what the law says about ownership of guns within the states or even in the country. I think let me leave it there first, and let's see how this discussion goes. Since we have somebody from the state with us.
There are a number of issues to raise, really. I mean, just as you have said, one of the natural things to ask is whether or not the state, quote unquote, by state I'm talking about the country, didn't ask for it. First of all, this is Zamfara is not the only state asking its people to defend themselves. We've heard it from pockets of states all over, the place, and it only speaks to one thing and raises this question of whether or not the police is capable of doing the job that, because after all, one would expect that the police is the unit of government that the government will use to protect lives and property. So the question then is, if the police has not been able to deliver, you are a former AIG, so you definitely know, what I'm talking about. If the police has not been able to do it, the question is why? Because that no one would want to leave his citizens and all of that lying fallow, not being able to do, what they're supposed to do, go to the farms, go to their jobs, vacate their homes. That is happening in Zamfara as we speak. So if the police has not been able to do what is expected, the question is why? For which reason the government of Zamfara state is asking for this?
Exactly the question that we keep asking. Why is it that the police and other security agencies have found it difficult to exercise governmental control over these areas? And the question is simple. I mean, the security agencies have been neglected over the years. I mean, we just heard of what is happening in the Supreme Court, the neglect it has experienced. It is the same neglect that the security agencies, especially the police, which is supposed to be like the lead agency is experiencing. I mean, provision of resources, provision of manpower. I mean, in a country of 200 million people, you have less than 200,000 or 400,000 people policing the country with no resources, no motivation, nothing, absolutely nothing, no policy guidelines. I mean, this is a country where no government, whether state or federal, has a policy or has developed a policy on public safety, has developed any policy on community safety or community protection. We say that we have a national security policy, but what does the national security policy talk about this kind of thing?
All right.
So we have a neglected organization that is incapable of delivering its responsibilities to citizens, and that's where we are.
Okay, Mr. Shinkafi. Concerning this directive by the state government, including the shooter site, which we'll see how much of that we can elaborate on, the government, the state knows the law. The governor is aware of the law in terms of what is required to get licenses, as it were, which Mr. Iwa did say is for hunting, not for protection. So on that point, you have those who think this is tantamount to putting the cart before the horse, or even playing to the gallery, because you know that there are questions about that scenario, because some other people think there's no way that 9,500 people will be allowed to get licenses to get guns for self-protection and not for hunting.
Well, thank you for having me on this program. The issue of the shoot aside executive order by His Excellency, the Governor of Zamfara State, is only restricted in murder axis in the Gusau East local government, where that rampage of banditry attack on the innocent citizens in Zamfara State. And many of these citizens in the murder town were being driven out by the bandit, and they have killed and taken some people on captivity. So the governor now issued an executive order for the closure of the market and livestock market, and also shoot aside anybody seen on Okada vehicle using clutch should be shoot aside, and anybody found carrying AK-47, AK-49 rifles should also be shot aside. It's an executive order. So on the issue of possession of firearms, there's what we call Firearms Act and Firearms Regulation laws in Nigeria. I can ally with the position of the former AIG that he knows there is no prohibition of a private person owning guns in Nigeria as far as it adheres to the firearms regulation laws in Nigeria. Only military uniforms, pistol, grenades, and rocket launchers and other sophisticated weapons that are to be used by security personnel are prohibited by the private person to use. So when you have attained the age of 17 years, and when you are also physically and mentally fit, you are entitled to possess firearms according to the firearms regulation law in Nigeria. And those firearms that a private person can bear or can possess in Nigeria is some action. And a private person can apply to any commissioner of police across the state of the federation, including Abuja. And when the license is acquired, then the applicant will now proceed to a licensed arms dealer and possess the farm action and also took the gun to the commissioner of police and record the serial number of the gun. So as far as the issue we're having at hand in Zamfara, we can no longer bear the excesses of the armed bandit in Zamfara state. If I can refresh your memory, armed banditry
Mr. Shinkafi,
activities.
hang on a minute. Just before you proceed to that next line of thought, does the Firearms Act, which you cited, does it allow for even private citizens to own sophisticated weapons or dang gun for hunting, as Mr. Iwa alluded to?
What I have said earlier, some action for gaming and hunting, some action. But
message for protection against banditry.
Let me tell you with what's happening, even for the Dengon, it is the local authority who has the power to issue a Dengon license through a commissioner of police. So on the issue of the action we are taking, let me tell you, the numbers of the security personnel in the state cannot fight this unbanded and the criminal element in the state.
All right, just give us a moment.
Numbers of police.
Mr. Shinkafi, pardon me for jumping in. We'll come back to you in just a moment. Don't go away. Welcome back. Well, Mr. Shinkafi, having listened to your point about owning even dang guns, as you say, and then firearms act saying for hunting, is that to conclude that, well, they will use the dang guns if they get the licenses for hunting of bandits in the state?
You see, self-defense in case of any danger or safety is a plea in any court of law. So when you are now attacked by bandits who illegally possess AK-47, AK-49, and you have also a locally fabricated gun, or even if you have possessed a license for hunting or gaming, you will left with no option than to defend yourself for safety of danger. This armed bandit has a sophisticated weapon, including rocket launchers, grenades, bombs, AK-49, AK-47. So the innocent people are being killed day by day.
Okay.
And the security operatives in the state are not doing the needful.
All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. But Mr. Iwa, having been a law officer yourself, now that narrative of his where they say, look, even if we comply with the Firearms Act and get a dang gun for hunting, but it can also be used for self-defense. Is that a lacuna which you think they're trying to take advantage of? Would it fly from the point of the law enforcement?
Let me first of all correct an impression that is created by the Honorable. First of all, the Firearm Act does not mention pump action. Pump action is a semi-automatic rifle, and it is not allowed to be owned by individuals. What the Firearms Act recognizes is single barrel and double barrel rifles, and even then, it is strictly for hunting. Whether it is day gun or the or single barrel or double barrel gun, it is strictly for hunting. There is nowhere in our laws where the firearms, where individuals are allowed to own guns for the purpose of self-protection. However, if you own a day gun and you are overwhelmingly attacked in your house, you could justify your defense by using whatever you have with you, including a day gun. But let it be clear that you cannot own a pump action gun in Nigeria because it is semi-automatic, or even if it is automatic, it is not allowed. I think what we should be talking about is, first of all, just like he has alluded to, that the security in the state is not enough. They don't have enough manpower in the state. We should be thinking of increasing the manpower, not just increasing the number, but making sure that we have a well-equipped, mobilized, and very well-trained police and other security agencies in the state. Not only in the state, not only that particular state, but all over the state. We don't have enough police. And
Mr.
yes.
If I may come in, if I may jump in, sorry to interrupt your thoughts. Indeed, some people will say that they agree very, very much with you that we should hire. And the president has been talking about how we have been hiring. He talked about how, I think over the past how many years or so, they have been able to hire at least 10,000 from the, is it 100,000 or so that they actually planned to hire. So that they'll argue that that is an ongoing process. However, people are still being murdered on a daily basis. People are being hunted like animals. And it's a good thing you've made the point that if people had this wherewithal, they had access to these guns, that they perhaps could have protected themselves under the circumstances. But looking at where we currently are, because some of the solutions will take a while, there are those who argue that why does it seem that there is now, there's always some sort of resistance when it comes to, liberalizing arms for people who have largely been law-abiding. Because according to them, on the black market, for those who want to wreak havoc on the people, for those who want to perpetrate harm to the people, they have a steady market, a supply of arms. Why is it that good people cannot also have that supply of arms to them legally?
Well, that is what the law says. The law, if we have to allow everybody to to own firearms legally, let the National Assembly change. Let the National Assembly change the law and make it and provide for every citizen to own a gun. But then we can also take a look at what is happening in other countries, other climes, and see how liberalizing gun has been a major problem for them. I mean, look at what is happening in US today. With all the strong agencies, all the strong organs of government, and yet controlling the use of firearms has been a problem. I mean, in other countries, take for example, in Australia, for example, in UK, for example, in Australia, ownership of gun was liberalized, but after a couple of shootings of citizens in the streets, they brought in laws that made it stricter for people to own firearms, and they are at peace with their country now. But then again, there are other provisions that government can provide. It is not just about reacting to crime. What has the government done in crime prevention in the state? In this state, what has government done to make sure that citizens don't drift to crime? Where are the jobs that make citizens not drift to crime? What provisions has government done? I mean, these things, where you have insecurity, you have to look at what is the root cause. And in most cases, the root cause is that we have people who don't have anything to do, who are not going to school. It is also the duty of government to provide for education, to provide for resources that we sustain their livelihood.
Thankfully, Mr. Shinkafi is here. He might be able to take some of the questions as to let me quickly send this to him then. Mr. Shinkafi, if you can hear me, some people believe that what the state governor is trying to do, and government by extension, is seeking the easy way out. They've raised up their hands in surrender, more or less like, we cannot protect you anymore. Get guns and protect yourselves. That would be the implication of what the Zamfara state government or governor is thinking up. There have been those who have said, why are you not thinking of getting vigilantes? Why are you not setting up an outfit like we have seen in the Southwest, even though there have been questions as to the efficacy of that? But at least it has been more acceptable than asking citizens to get certificates or get licenses for weapons.
We still have the governor inaugurated 4 committees yesterday. The committee is a standing committee on security. That is committee on the security. This joint task force, joint task force. So that is like a community policy. And there's also which is beheaded by former Commissioner of Police Maman Anka. And there is also the committee I'm chairing for prosecution of armed related offenses. What do we have? What the governor yesterday upheld to the good people of Zamfara State, that we are going to recruit 500 vigilante in each and every emirate, 19 emirate we have. We have 19 emirates. So we are going to recruit 500 vigilante group in all the emirates. So when you put it in the number, it's about 9,000 vigilantes. We are going to try to emulate what our 1,000 counterparts, counterpart did like Amotifi. You understand? So what we are trying to do, we are trying to recruit this vigilante and also train them through the police training schools in Sokoto or in Kano. So what the government was doing, we are pushed to the wall, and we can no longer tolerate the excesses of this armed banditry and their collaborators. If you look at what is happening in Zamfara State, if you have solved the problem of insecurity in Zamfara State, you have solved the problem of the Northwest, and maybe you have solved the problem of Northern Nigeria. So the issue of insecurity, what the former AIG was saying, the issue of insecurity is not only in Zamfara State, it's not only in the northern Nigeria, it is also in the southern Nigeria. Issue of IFOP.
Yes, but Zamfara has a peculiar issue. I mean, the issue in Zamfara has been on for a while. I mean, apart from the northeast, it would seem that Zamfara has been a particularly thorny state to solve in terms of the security problems that it has faced. I mean, it is Zamfara. We have seen that there's been a no-fly zone put in place, and then later on it was scrapped, or maybe it's still in place and we don't even know.
The issue of no-fly zone has no effect on the Zamfara State because we don't have even existing airport for now. The airport is under construction. So what we are saying, you know, we have proximity to the border, and the Zamfara State sharp boundary with the Niger Republic, where these criminal elements and their sponsors can easily come in with the guns. If a criminal
have you been able to, apart from that,
AK-47,
if I may, Mr. Shinkafi, apart from the fact that you share border with Niger Republic, are there other indices which you think make you prone to the sort of security collapse which you have witnessed in Zamfara? Because some people are also pointing fingers to the indices of development in Zamfara State. When it comes to education, there's very little to write home about. I mean, in terms of health, etc. The AIG just also asked about jobs. What about the economy of Zamfara State? What exactly is happening in that regard? If you compare it with neighboring states, some people will say that Zamfara, you know, doesn't even compare favorably with the other states which surround it in the region. So there are questions as to what exactly is happening with Zamfara in that regard.
On the issue of unemployment, is like natural phenomenon across the country. So when you are trying to talk of lack of unemployment is the root cause of the insecurity in Zamfara State. What about Anambra State, where IFOP have been killing people day by day? What about the Imo State, where people are being killed day by day? What about in Borno State and Yobe State? So on the issue of unemployment, what I'm trying to learn...
Sorry, Mr. Shinkafi, you missed the point of my question. Without, you know, prejudice to these other states, I'm talking about other neighboring states which are just around Zamfara. There's Sokoto, there is Kebbi, which is just, you know, they are neighboring states to Zamfara. And Zamfara is in the northwest region of the country. There are questions as to why it will seem that the problem seems particularly intractable in Zamfara State.
Even in Sokoto State, the problem is there. Even in Kebbi State, some of the federal government college girls in Yaoundé are still in captivity. In Katsina State, day by day, including the Katsina town, Banda have been attacking Katsina State town where the president comes from. And even in Kaduna, we have Birnin Gwari Forest, where these armed bandits are in thousands, including ISWAP and ISIS are in the forest, in Birnin Gwari Forest. But because Zamfara State is always on the news, and also some politicians are trying to make it to use issue of insecurity as a way of campaign ahead of 2023 election. So what I'm telling you, this problem is compounded in the northwestern, in the northwest, particularly in the 5 states: Kebbi, Kaduna, Sokoto, Zamfara, and the Katsina State. So only in Kano and Jigawa is very minimal. So what I'm trying to tell you, it is not issue of unemployment. Some are even exaggerating the matter. People are outside the state are looking at beyond what we are seeing it. But with what is happening now, the recent activities of the armed bandits in the state necessitate the call for possession of firearms by private citizens in the state. But put it on court. Government have not even clearly specified the gun Because some people are misquoting him, calling rifles AK-47, AK-49. Government is trying to act within the ambit of the firearms regulation law in Nigeria.
Okay.
Firearms regulation law of 1958 and firearms regulation law of 1990.
Okay. Well, Mr. Shinkafi, now this committee of yours is in place already, Committee on Prosecution of Banditry-Related Offenses in Zamfara State. When does this order of the governor take off? When does it start to take effect?
Today by 2 p.m., I'm going to head my inaugural meeting. And also today, the governor is going to sign into law death penalty for kidnappers, informer, and all bandit-related issue. Today is there's going to be a breaking news that the House of Assembly in Zamfara State yesterday passed into law death penalty for kidnappers and also informer and their collaborators.
Well, Mr. Shinkavi, since you have given us the headline, the breaking news already, but when does that order or the directive or the whatever it is that we want to call it, that the governor said that people can begin to own guns, when does that one take off?
No. Let me tell you. Governor is acting within the ambit of the firearms regulation law. What the law says, a private person in Nigeria can possess firearms if he's 17 years old, if he's physically and mentally fit, if he has no record of any narcotic case, or if he has no record of any criminal record or domestic violence. So, and if at all the application is granted by the applicant, he should proceed to a gun dealer and own a gun. And with what is happening in Nigeria, if criminal like bandit can own AK-47, AK-49, walk on the street, no soldier or police or any security agency will shoot him aside or arrest him or send him to jail or life imprisonment, then somebody who's doing his normal life cannot defend himself for safety of danger of this criminal element.
Ewa, it appears
it's highly disturbing.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just a minute, hang on. Okay, we hear you. We need to wind down and close down. Mr. Ewa, in conclusion, it appears as though we have a challenge on our hands, because you could have other states who are watching and waiting and listening saying, well, we equally have a huge challenge on our hands in terms of security. We're overwhelmed. We've called that several times. Nothing has happened. Why don't we as well go ahead and tell our citizens, go and get some of these things? And then citizens are also watching saying, look, I have to find a way to defend myself. You have said that we need to deploy more manpower to ensure things happen. But it appears it's not as straightforward. How do we resolve all of these things?
It seems to me as if we are more fixated on reactive security provisioning in this country, rather than also balancing it with proactive ways of dealing with the situation. Agreed that we have a very deadly situation on our hand, but do we make it more deadly, create more anarchy by asking citizens to go and procure firearms for themselves? I think the answer is overwhelming no. I think that we need to be more creative and innovative in dealing with this in this situation. Let us also look at other proactive ways of dealing with it. I mean, you asked, Moekwe asked them about education and all that, and that question was evaded. I mean, we have a situation in the Northeast where even this year, some states have not been able to pay for even WAEC. I mean, government is supposed to invest in people so that their capabilities to take care of themselves can be fully achieved. But that is not what we have here. We have a huge population of people that have, and all we think is reacting to to what they are doing rather than also balancing our reactive efforts with proactive efforts. Like I said, and I always say it, we don't have, the Zamfara state government and most other state government don't even have any policy to protect their communities. No security policy, no community safety policy or even strategy.
All right, Mr. Ewa, we have to let it go at this point in time. Mr. Austin Ewa, former AIG of Police, as well as Mr. Sani Shinkafi, Chairman, Committee on Prosecution of Bandits-Related Offences in Zamfara State. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, some feedback coming through from you out there. Let's go ahead and take the very first one.
Yes, the very first one is from Bashir Adarabioyo on this same topic. It says, I personally salute the courage of Zamfara state government to have taken this decision. Yes, it's the responsibility of the state, federal and state, to protect lives and property of citizens. Are we saying that responsibility is exclusive? What's wrong with others, individuals and organizations complementing that responsibility? Whether it will work or not is one thing. What's sure is the fact that the bandits will start thinking twice before launching their attacks.
What Henry says about the judiciary, principally, separation of powers among the three organs of government, digitalized judicial service system, introduction of the jury system for certain offenses are some innovation we should embrace to sustain Nigeria's judiciary and strengthen our justice system.
And Law Alpha Cross says the outgone Chief Justice of Nigeria has proven that the judiciary is a glorified and respectable arm of government for resigning his position. No thanks to ill health. How I wish political office holders and aspirants will learn from this gentlemanly action. And if I may, I just quickly take this one from Professor Enakena. The strengthening of judiciary would entrench justice in the society and become the cornerstone of democracy. The other arms, the executive and legislature, are truly independent. Why not the judiciary? The system should be reappraised for equity and justice. Well, Mr. Festus Akimboewa, we also see yours, but we're totally out of time. Thank you so much for sending in your messages this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
I'm Train Bellin, so goodbye.